Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2023 film Brooklyn 45. It's a Shudder original and it's coming to Shudder Friday, June 9th. So this is a no spoiler review because I'm putting this out before it's on Shudder and because it's just a new film. So, gonna get into this. Written and directed by Ted Geoghegan, who also did Demonium, Nikos the Impaler, Don't Wake the Dead, Mohawk, Satanic Panic, and We Are Still Here. I'm going to say right now, I reviewed We Are Still Here at some point last year. Did end up enjoying that film. This film has a bit of a similar feel, so you really can tell that it was done by the exact same person. I believe that was also written and directed by Ted Geoghegan as well. So, you could, I felt it, especially having seen that film kind of recently. I was like, yeah, there's some real commonalities here. It has a very similar atmospheric feel. It's shot kind of the same way. So yeah, but I've interacted with him briefly a few times on Twitter, and he seems like a very lovely individual, very nice person. So I wanted to love this film. I will say I did not love this film, but I do think that this is a film that's going to find its audience for sure on Shudder. So it's not for me. I'll tell you what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, which is, very common for these. That's what I always do for this. But, yeah, there are definitely people who are going to like this one. Larry Fessenden is in this film, just so people know if that's a selling point for anyone, which I love the performances of Larry Fessenden. Obviously, he's great. I mean, he's the best actor in the film because that's Larry Fessenden. That's what he does. And he just... every time he has a role, he just goes for it, he just does. So he's joyful. He's a joy in this film. The 45 in the title of this film, no big spoiler here because it's immediate in the film, stands for 1945. That is the setting. And that takes me into the synopsis of the film, which is a bunch of people involved in World War II in the United States getting together with a friend who recently lost his wife. They decide to do a seance during it, which, by the way, seances were actually very popular back then. Ouija boards were very popular back then, those mystic things. I know that because I read an article about it in Rue Morgue magazine some time ago. Very interesting, very informative. But they get together, they have a seance. That's kind of all I want to put out there because it's horror. So your mind can kind of wander, although you're never going to, based off of what I just said, know exactly what's going to happen in this film. So, one of the cool things with this one is that it starts off in black and white, literally the opening shot, black and white, and then it slowly transitions to color. That looked really cool. And that goes to one of the big things. I think the direction of this film is quite good. I think the cinematography of this film is quite good. There's a lot of really nice technical things with this film, and you can tell that Ted knows what he's doing as far as that stuff goes. The world environment is established very well very early on. Like I said, the setting is 1945. It's basically the end of the end. And you'll know why I'm doing this when you see the film, the end of World War II. So yeah, they do a very good job of kind of giving you the mindsets of characters, giving you an idea of kind of what they went through in whatever capacity they were involved with World War II and kind of where they are mentally at that point. And eventually you get tidbits about their past, some backstory stuff. So that's kind of slowly done over the course of the film. But it is very important that they kind of set that environment up. So I like that. I think it was established quickly and effectively. Some of the line delivery is kind of wooden in this film. This is one of the things that kind of threw me out of what was going on with the film, is there are some pieces of dialogue that you can tell seem like they're being read as dialogue, basically. They're being delivered as lines. They don't feel natural for what's going on in the situation. They don't feel conversational. So I think that was one of the things that really kind of took me out of this film from time to time. So that was one of my issues. Again, shot well, looks quite good. I'm a fan. There's a decent amount of talk about religion early on in the film. So for someone like me, it kind of... I don't like religion talk in film. That's just because I was never raised with religion, so it doesn't really speak to me. It's not something that I'm into, but I know I'm very much in the minority on that one because a lot of people are raised with religion. So it's interesting for those people, potentially not that interesting for me. But if anyone just wants to know, that is not a main topic in the film, but it is covered to a decent degree in the beginning of the film, at least. There are some cool effects in this. I really like the use of effects in this. I love the ideas that Ted came up with for specific things to put in there effects-wise, and they look really good. Some of the stuff is CGI. It's done quite well. Some of the stuff is practical. Also done quite well. So Ted knows what he's doing when it comes to that. And if anything, the end of We Are Still Here kind of set me up to expect that from him. And he did deliver on that stuff within this film. I like how they choose to really ratchet things up. And when I say that, I don't mean the fact that they just did ratchet things up in the film. It's how they choose that moment. I love that. It's very... I don't want to say too much. It's interesting. So I quite like that. I was very happy with it. But yeah. I do like the soundtrack, especially because it's restrained. This is one of the big things I talk about all the time, especially with newer films. We've had a bit of a movement towards more restrained scores, not screaming at you whenever there's something going on in a film. And that's what I think is wonderful. That's where I think we should be going with horror films. And Ted does that in this film. So not only is the composition of the music really good, and it is very effective at kind of building and maintaining an atmosphere that they were going for, but it's just at the right level. Like, you're not being screamed at any point. It's kind of there. It's kind of like, if you're not even focusing too much, you could kind of forget that the music's there, but you're still hearing it at the same time. So it kind of blends in there seamlessly, so I think that's quite well done. Things do gradually get revealed about what's going on overall, as well as backstory. So I do like that when films kind of do that, and they kind of give you like a little bit here and there. My problem is that little bit, it's kind of slow. One of my biggest issues with this film is the pacing. Now, if memory serves properly, I believe in my review of We Are Still Here, I felt like there were kind of pacing issues for me throughout that film until they kind of hit the end of the film. Feels similar in this one to me as well, but I don't think that the ending of Brooklyn 45 nearly has the impact that the ending of We Are Still Here has. They're obviously very separate films, very different subject matter, but I can't help but compare because, it's the same filmmaker. But I know there's some people who are really going to be feeling that. So if you like kind of a slower paced film like this, and you're big into this time period of where it's being set, because they do a really good job, or Ted does a really good job of making you feel like you're in that time period. And that's something that can be kind of hard to do, because there have been a few other films that are kind of like World War II era that have come to Shudder over the years, and they don't do the best job at making you feel like that's where you are. You'd be like, this feels like it's actually just present day. No, not the case with Brooklyn 45. So he did a really good job of kind of keeping in that realm. But my biggest problem with this film is the pacing. The pacing is not great, unfortunately, and starting to kind of lose me at times. And then again, like, for the pacing to not be super great, and then I didn't feel like the ending had a super great payoff. Those things are kind of tough, because you can kind of make it up to me a little bit with the pacing issue if you have like a really good, really impactful ending of the film, kind of like We Are Still Here. But I know I'm referencing that a lot, but I can't help it. There is a practical effects moment towards the end of this film that I really enjoyed. You will all know what I'm talking about if you've already seen the film, or when you see the film. They go big. They go big on it, and I love it. I love how big and how much, practical effects wise. And that's all I'm going to say, because again, I'm not spoiling stuff here. The ending seemed like it was going to go bigger, but it didn't, unfortunately. Again, I already talked about this, but it kind of bears repeating. It feels like it's building up to something. It feels like it's going to be bigger than it actually is when it's coming up. But then again, like I said, there are going to be people out there who comment on this video, and they're just like, I loved how it ended. I'm thinking that subscriber entropy stings. I'm thinking this is kind of more in his vein than mine. We disagree on these films all the time. All the time. It's actually shocking when we agree. There are a lot of slurs in this film. So I just want to throw that out there to people. If you're very sensitive about that stuff, I want you to have that warning about it. I am okay with the use of them in this film because it fits the time period. I'm one of those people where if you're going to put slurs in just to put slurs in, not okay, especially if it's like a film being filmed in present day necessarily. We don't need to do that. But if you're actually setting this in 1945 and that's how people talked, you can choose not to go that direction, which if I'm a filmmaker, I would not go that direction. But I also don't fault you too much if you do go that direction because it's realism for what was going on at that time period. So it's a personal preference thing, but I just wanted people to have that information and know, like, it didn't kill the film for me. It's not something that I'm judging Ted Geoghegan based off of, for sure. I'm not, but just want people to know that because I know there are people out there who are very sensitive to that and they just don't want to watch a film that has that in there. They just don't. So you have gotten your information. This film does go very hard at one particular theme. It's a very timely theme, especially with the world as it is now, but it's done in a very heavy-handed way. Now, I do know, again, there are a lot of people out there who like that. They like that. They don't like things to be subtextual in film. I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of subtext to this film, and I'm more looking for that when I'm watching horror films. That's just kind of my speed, what I like. But I just wish this film was a lot more subtextual instead of kind of like bashing you over the head to a degree with what the theme was here. But still, it's not a bad film. I didn't hate this film by any stretch. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going to give it a 3-star rating. I was between 2.5 and 3, but as I was going through like all the technical stuff, like the music is really good. It looks really good. Larry Fessenden's performance is really good. Some of his practical effects, that one practical effect in particular, but all effects really good. There's a lot of awesome technical stuff, and it's an interesting, intriguing story, the way it's set up and everything. So I'm giving it 3 stars. You know, it's not a film that I would go back to. It's not a film that I would highly recommend to anyone. But maybe you will if you watch it. So this is where you give me your opinion on the film. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Are you in between on it? Let's go ahead and talk. And you can do spoilers in the comments. That's totally cool. Do me a favor, though, before you're done with this. Hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very much. I love you for that. It really does mean a lot to me because I'm just kind of putting out free content to do that. But also hit the notification bell button and you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing 3 a week at this point. Regardless, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.